So just check this out. I believe the state's probable cause statement lays out a preponderance of evidence in your favor needed here. The dog's owner admits it was loose, admits that it was headed toward you while you were in your yard across the street, admits that it would not obey commands. This defense is specified in Missouri Revised Statutes. Quote, killing or injuring a dog, reasonable apprehension of imminent harm is an absolute defense. And he gives a quote here that I'm going to go over when I show you the website that he links to, because that concludes it. Here's that actual document that he linked to. Looks like Title 17, Agriculture and Animals, Chapter 273.033, killing or injuring a dog, reasonable apprehension of imminent harm, and an absolute defense. Now, keep in mind, police kill an average of 30,000. 30,000. Sorry, I got my facts mixed up in the same sentence. Around 10,000 dogs a day in the United States die being shot by police. Now, some obviously are justifiably shot because they have irresponsible owners, or because, of course, the cops are legitimately acting like bad guys and get attacked by dogs just doing their job. In any case, my point is, police obviously shoot dogs all the time, average of 30 a day, and how many of them face any headache for it whatsoever? Here we go. In any action for damages or a criminal prosecution, meaning civil or criminal, against any person for killing or injuring a dog, as showing by a preponderance of the evidence that such person was in reasonable apprehension of imminent harmful contact by the dog, or was acting to prevent such imminent harmful contact against another person by the dog, shall constitute an absolute defense to criminal prosecution or civil liability for the killing or injuring of such animal. So then you have to ask, has there been shown a preponderance of the evidence that I was in reasonable apprehension of imminent harmful contact by the dog? I think there's probably a preponderance of evidence that that was the case. They're claiming this dog had a ball in its mouth. Can you even find a video anywhere on the internet of anyone ever shooting a dog with a ball in its mouth? Just top to bottom, it makes no sense, common sense whatsoever. Especially given my history. I have never shot a dog before in my life. I have come close once before, that is all. I have been attacked by dogs or threatened by dogs on multiple occasions. This is the only time I ever had to actually pull a trigger. So I have zero history whatsoever of having any kind of a past that is sketchy toward harming animals or dogs that threaten me. Number 2. If a person has, on at least 2 occasions, complained to the county sheriff or to the appropriate animal control authority. Now this has to do with people that complain. I have not complained. The dog never left its yard prior to this incident that I am aware of. So long as a dog does not leave their yard, I don't have a problem with it. If it's obeying commands, it doesn't leave their yard. If it had, I would have complained. Yes, I would have called the government and complained. They have a the dog that's acting vicious, not in their yard. We have a school close by with children close by at random times of the day. Something needs to be happening. So this section 2 has to do with that. I obviously did not do that, but it basically says, you can read it, that anybody who encounters a dog trespassing, especially after they've given 2 complaints to the sheriff, there's just no question, buddy. He can defend himself. And whether or not the sheriff did his job and notified the owner, doesn't matter. If he's on your property and you say so, and you complain about it, and they do nothing, or they do something, that doesn't matter. If that dog's on your property in imminent harm, you get to harm or kill it. And face no charges whatsoever, criminal or civil. Number 4. This section should not be construed to provide an absolute defense to a person who is engaged or attempting to engage in criminal activity. Obviously, that doesn't apply. Number 3 is the most important one. The court shall award attorney's fees, court costs, and all reasonable expenses incurred by the defendant in defense of any criminal prosecution or in any civil action brought by a plaintiff if the court finds that the defendant has an absolute defense as provided in subsection 1 of this section. You think that this is going to play a factor here? Do you think that it was important for them to bring up this 273.033? Do you think if they had allowed assistance of counsel that this would have been discovered? I mean, if I wanted to, and I wanted to dig through every little last corner, I would have found this. How much time would I have spent? How many other things are out there that exist like this that we still don't know about? Their actions are so egregious that it just makes logical sense that they are violating their own rules if you just dig and dig to find them. That's how insanely abusive they are. And here is one example of one facet of this entire story. Where does it say a police officer may make the determination, regardless of missing factual evidence, that one side is in fact guilty enough to be charged with animal abuse, have his gun stolen, forcefully entered and seized, search and seizure of his home, places and effects against his will, and threatened with arrest, like a search warrant signed by a judge who will toss the whole house looking for the gun. The cost that it mentions here, as far as an award, don't have anything to do with mentioning punitive damages. We're just going to fine you and cause you to have to pay just as a punitive measure. You have acted with malice, in bad faith. You have colluded. You have formed a conspiracy network against this person because of your confidence in the overwhelming power of the state. This fictional entity that every one of you is employed and licensed by. Trying to sell that this is some kind of a democratic republic and a free country with a constitution and rights that are respected and a Bill of Rights that means something. That judges can't just blatantly violate and get away with. Well, they are. And anyone like me who's been doing this for 10 years, since 2015, believe you me, has noticed the decline year after year after year of more terroristic, tyrannical these judges in this country are getting year after year after year. And over what? Extorting nonviolent victimless criminal charges in the form of minor traffic violations. And this is what everybody knows they face if they don't want to pay the rent called property tax on their cars like I did. Never mind their houses. This chapter, statute, whatever you want to call it, acknowledges reality. That people can harm and shoot a dog that is trespassing on their property. It's called trespass. If you own an animal that is capable of inflicting great injury to a human being, by God, you had better control it. If you do not, you are being an irresponsible owner and are responsible for the damage and harm that animal causes. And they just ignore inconvenient statutes like this because they're all part of a network that says, hey, the cops in Wentzville say their buddy is this neighbor who owns the dog, and they're going to choose his side over the guy who got attacked. So we're going to make up a story about a ball being in the dog's mouth that we're not going to tell the guy who got attacked until a year after the charges are filed. and just push this through because we know the judges are in our back pocket and they're going to do whatever the prosecutor wants, and the prosecutors are doing whatever the cops want. Everybody is in agreement that, hey, this is okay. Nobody said, no, we're not going to file a criminal charge for this. It is a civil matter. If there's Ring cameras, there might be other cameras. If there's evidence from the dog owner that the person who shot him acted in malice, or even though everyone agrees this happened in the front yard, if by some miracle they can convince a civil jury to award damages and vet bills, then he can go ahead and sure try. But it's not the government's business. We have no evidence one way or the other that we can stand on to steal this man's gun, threaten him with a tossing of his entire house from a search warrant, and do a complete perfectly legal, but a search and seizure that's completely against the Bill of Rights. That's supposed to protect people in this country, that is in the oath that this cop takes. Like, it's all such a joke. The idea that there's equality under the law, redress of grievance, is all a joke. They've made a complete mockery of it, and it's because I keep saying this. This country is conquered. Is it possible for a country to lose a war and be completely conquered, but the people who conquered it play this hustle on all the inhabitants that it hasn't been conquered? They keep the same name, they keep all the same governments and institutions, they just buy out or coerce everybody with power to the point where they can influence who rises to power. And it sure is cheaper to get some psycho that has a sketchy past that, if discovered, everybody would completely want him banished from everyone else for life. Like, just real scumbag type behavior. It's sure cheaper to coerce someone to do what you want them to do if you put psychos in power than if you put people who are having to accept bribes. Is it possible? Because everything that this country was founded on, and the documents that all these people, the cops and lawyers and judges, take their oaths to, all of the documents they take their oaths to are completely powerless. They're completely ignored, or they're completely redefined. The cause and nature is now the title of the criminal charge, and the max penalty in jail they're threatening you with. That is the cause and nature. A jury of your peers is a jury of complete strangers who all vote for the legitimacy of the listed accuser, the state of Missouri. If not employed by or licensed by the accuser themselves, as teachers, firemen, police, government employees, administrators of any kind, utility employees, anybody who works at Boeing and manufactures arms and weapons, and there's a shit ton of that going down in Missouri, let me tell you. Ultimately works for government contracts and knows where their bread is buttered. I mean, it just is more and more and more obvious. The more that you dig, the more and more and more dirt you find. That they are, according to their own rules, not supposed to be doing this. That it's so far beyond hypocrisy, it's not even funny. And they're really not even trying to hide it. I just had Engelmeyer pull in 1984 Orwellian-style attempt at a bench trial, no jury, no public, no, they're not recording it, they won't let me record it, they'll threaten me with prison. And he just proceeds and gets the cops on the bench before I even know it, my head's spinning, all without the assistance of counsel, without a plea entered, or without a jury allowed. Like, this is not America as you know it or think it to be or thought of in history. If there's no Bill of Rights, if there's no Constitution that works, this is not America. This is America conquered. Like, everybody should be flying the flag upside down. What other explanation can there be? Everything that was written down to free the people who created this country from the King of England is now happening in effect in this country to anyone who resists or challenges them by saying, you know what? You're not writing down on paper how it is that you flip the mechanism where you first presume me innocent of jurisdiction, but then treat me like I'm not and impose upon me with comply or die threats of violence through bench warrant arrests, while you're breaking even your own laws. And you're just reliant upon the fact that if someone doesn't have money or power or influence to fight back and defend themselves, that the entirety of the system is going to be against them, the defendant, me. And you're right. Unless social media comes along, AI comes along, accountability comes along, transparency comes along, Judge Elvis Thornhill making international headlines comes along, and you arrest a former pilot in the United States Air Force who shot a dog in defense of his own life and limb with animal abuse. What did that gain you? What did the government gain by charging me and arresting me and stealing my property? Instead of just saying, oh, civil matter, he said, she said, not our business. Well, they gained that in Wentzville, this neighbor, his longtime resident, and knows all the cops and are all connected, gets the favor, the benefit, and all the price, all the risk, and all the exposure, and all the blatant abuses that the government has done. What have they gained from all this? The gain is the benefit of the neighbor, the owner of the dog. That is all the government has gained. It's not like I committed some crime and stole from the government and they're after money that I took from them. It's not like I've committed some fraud where their money is being spent in other directions that it shouldn't be, and I was enabling that. They've spent how much money on this case of taxpayer property money already on prosecuting me to this point for over a year? How many tens of thousands of dollars? Even if I'm found guilty, how much will they collect from me? How much would it cost to imprison me for a year in their jail? And over what? Over what? Because they said, he shot my dog not because it viciously attacked him in his own front yard, and ignored my commands while doing so. And I even put all these details in the police report that are mentioned here. Agreed it was in my front yard. Agreed the dog crossed over. Agreed the dog ignored all the commands. They're going to all of these lengths and spending all of that money and effort and energy to prosecute me because of the benefit of a neighbor that one cop likes. And then the chief defends. Oh yeah, I'm going to defend my cop. Next thing you know, the prosecutor goes, oh, I'm going to defend the chief. And the judge goes, oh, I'm going to defend the prosecutor. Next thing you know, you got a judge defending the will of a prosecutor, defending the will of a chief, defending the will of his cop, defending the will of his buddy, the neighbor who owns the dog. So the power of the neighbor as a dog owner who's connected to the government and knows the cops has the power of the judge in their back pocket in this case. And even against all their rules, self-defense, leash laws, in his own yard, in this 27.033, never mind what's required to have an arrest warrant be inflicted upon somebody, instead of just giving them a summons to a hearing. They ignore it all in St. Charles County. They don't give a fuck. Nobody ever pays attention. Nobody fights back. Nobody ever holds them accountable. Nobody ever defends themselves. The people have the government they deserve. And then people like me have to deal with. People who are perfectly capable of defending themselves and know how to speak truth to power and do so with zero fear have to deal with this nonsense because of collective cowardice. On both sides. Man, you don't even know what it's like just reading the news, reading current events, laughing with my bag of popcorn for the last 5 to 7 years on the beach, man, just chilling, just enjoying the drama and the soap opera of this government tear itself apart and this society along with it. Bulgaria and Chile just came together and formed massive crowds and protests that filled the streets around their capital, and guess what happened? Their governments resigned. Have the first dominoes just fallen? Does this have to happen on a federal level? Can it happen on a state level? Could it happen at a county level? Could it happen at the city level? Forcing the local government to resign through massive, overwhelming public influence. We are not having this nonsense of your nonviolent victimless criminal charges. We are not allowing your Missouri state troopers to pull people over on an interstate highway that already has construction limitations on its space so that you can write tickets, nonviolent victimless speeding tickets on bright sunny days on dry pavement to people to fill your quotas in your coffers when everybody who's on that road now has to shift over and cause a 3-lane interstate to turn into 2 lanes of interstate and hope all those mergers happen safely Never mind hope that nobody is texting or drunk and plows into the cars on the side of the road. We're not paying your property taxes on our cars or houses. You're not going to kick us out of our house that we've paid off because we won't give you your monthly rent. You're nothing but the local mafia crowd. You're legalized extortion artists. And then you hire these cops and create an environment in the police department where only sociopaths want to join and can maintain and be promoted within it. You can't report bad police for bad, illegal police behavior and stay a cop and get promoted. The only people who get promoted in police departments in America are people who are okay with sweeping dog shit behavior under the rug and protecting the government, protecting the locals, protecting the county council, protecting the mayor. It's just their own little club, and if you're not in it, it's just a microcosm example of the state and of the Fed. Trickles all the way down. It is purposefully designed like this. They reward and promote and give status and power to those people who comply and obey the will, kiss the ring, touch the wall, wear the yarmulke, whatever it is. They kiss the ass. And truth be damned, they don't care about it. It's all logical fallacies. It's all deception. It's all diversion, evasion, insulting. It's anything other than directly answering the direct and specific question on the table of discussion before everybody. And in these American courts, that happens to be, has the prosecutor provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction that you presume have admitted that I'm presumed innocent of? Have they passed documentation regarding the element of jurisdiction to the court as of yet, yes or no? And they never have. Anything they do pass cannot withstand scrutiny for logical and ethical consistency. Like I said, after a 20-minute convo, I finally got Kyle, the prosecutor in O'Fallon, to admit that they're using the traffic ticket as factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction. And when I asked him, outstanding, is there anything else you're using or going to use? He smiled and walked away and ordered the police to have me removed. Fact. And then when I asked the office to give me a meeting with Kyle so I could get that question answered, because now he'll have time for it, he responded by saying, the prosecutor, Kyle, is not meeting with you at any point in time before your next hearing on December 18th, which is in 2 days. A day and a half, almost. I'm sincerely not even mad. I'm disgusted with the people who live here and allow this to happen. Far more than the people who are employed by it and infect it and inflict it. Like, human beings who are okay with being employed by the government and committing violence on other people. Like, if you're working the desk at the prosecutor's office or the court clerk, and you're seeing me come in there and I'm like filing all these motions against a corrupt judge, and next thing you know, that judge gets recused involuntarily by the presiding judge with no reason given, gee, stands to reason you might be working for a bunch of assholes. There is no anger toward NPCs. This branch of humanity exists because it evolved to exist. Deception is a very successful survival strategy, and this is just one of many faces of it. There is no grotesque, vulgar, violent scene you've ever witnessed in nature that is not likewise reflected in this human species, in just a much more sophisticated and often hidden way. We are not immune to the violence of the animal kingdom. It just comes in different forms. And a massive portion of the population are NPCs, who are not capable of ethical contract. Ethics does not factor in their decisions on career field. In fact, if they can get an advantage by entering a career field that most people don't want to be in because it is unethical, they will see that as a great advantage. Oh, I'm more likely to get hired, and I'm more likely to get promoted. Because these pesky rules, those are just for people who care about rules and realize that rules are for people without power. People with power don't have to live by the rules. Therefore, I don't have to. The ends justify the means. I'm still a good person because Insert vague justification here. If we didn't have a justice system, it would be a massive threat to our national security or public safety, are the two most common vague excuses used to justify removing people's freedoms. 25 minutes in, I've done enough rant. The end.